Hello, JazzMentlists. Welcome to 2023. It's Paul Tobey here. I'm going to do a year in review, take a look at some of the things that worked on the channel this year and some of the things that didn't. I'm going to play a little bit. I sure hope you can join me. If you're out there, just join us on the chat, ask any questions you like, and we will get through this year in review in about an hour, maybe a little bit less than that. It depends on how things go. I didn't entirely prepare for this presentation. There's a couple of reasons for that. One, I was actually supposed to have a party today, a New Year's levee. Have you ever been to a New Year's levee? It's kind of when friends and family get together and talk about the year that's coming up. But as you can probably hear, I'm getting over a cold. So I didn't really want to, and my wife is not feeling that great as well. So we kind of canceled that party, and I decided, hey, since I've got the time, I'll go live on YouTube. So I apologize a little bit if my voice sounds a bit hoarse, and you might hear the odd cough or sneeze as well. So a couple of things about the channel, JazzMentl. It was formed during COVID as a project to kind of fill some space. And at the beginning of 2023, we started with 2,000 subscribers, and now we're up over 10,000. I think the last count was 10,600 something. And we're growing at about 650 subscribers a month, give or take. And so typically what happens is 650 plus 10%. So next month it'll be, like I said, 650 plus 10%, and then 10% accumulative after that. So it's kind of like this curve that goes up, and that's because I owe it all to you for actually watching our videos. I put a lot of work into them. In fact, my wife and I both put a lot of work into these videos. And of course, Nancy and I appreciate the fact that you're watching them, but not everything worked in 2023. And so I'm going to talk about some of those things, and then I'm also going to talk about some of the things that worked really, really well. So the first thing I'm going to do is talk about, or I'm actually going to ask you, what do you think was the most popular video for us in 2023? Well, the answer is a video called "What's the Difference Between Jazz and Blues?" And I think that probably came out of a little bit of research on our part, plus the fact that people generally confuse the two. And so what I tried to do in that video, and actually afterward, after this video is done and we're not live anymore, and you can just watch the recording, which you may be watching now, I'll post links to each of those videos as we go through them. So the first one, like I said, this is the most popular video that we put out. It's had thousands of views. And I'll put a link, if you take a look up in the left-hand corner, there's a link to that video now. What did I talk about in that video? Well, basically, I tried to relate it from a musical perspective, not necessarily a historical perspective. Yeah, I might have talked about a little bit of the history, but it's mostly about blues and jazz. Now, blues is basically 12-bar blues. Now, if you go to a blues club, they may play things other than a 12-bar blues, but that's mainly what it's based upon. So if you take a look at the basic structure of 12-bar blues for blues players, it's basically, and let's do it in F, which is kind of a simple key for most people. You've got like a F7 to B flat 7, which is the 4 chord, and then back to F7. So that's 1 bar of F7, 1 bar of B flat 7, and then 2 bars of F7. And then it goes to 4 for 2 bars. And then 2 bars of F7. And then 1 bar of C7, which is the 5 chord. And then 1 bar of B flat 7, and then back to F7 for 2 bars. So it's pretty simple. Let's see what we can do with that simple structure. So as you can see, it's a fairly simple structure. Now, what does jazz do to that? Now, of course, I played a little bit swing, which I think blues players do as well. A lot of times it's rock blues, rock feel, straight eighth feel. That was more swing. But when you get into jazz, essentially what we try to do in jazz is add more chords to give it more depth, more of a advanced harmonic progression in order to maybe make your soloing a little more interesting. So the basic jazz structure starts out the same way. It's basically F7, but of course we may add upper structure triads and extensions to that, like go to like an F7 sharp 11 chord. Then we're going to B flat for one bar. And then we're going to do a 2-5 heading to B flat. So, excuse me. A lot of times in jazz, what we do is when we're heading to a destination chord, in this case, the 4 chord, which starts on the fifth bar of the tune, we'll do a 2-5 just before that with a whole bar. So C minor 7 to F7 of some kind, in this case, some kind of tritone substitution, and then back to B flat. And then it goes up a half step to B diminished 7th, and then back to F, and then a 2-5, because we're heading to the 2 chord now, so a 2-5 of G. So A7 or A7, A minor 7 flat 5 to G minor to C, and then a turnaround. So let me play that one more time. So as you can see, there's more chords in there. So that's one of the main differences between blues and jazz. Blues plays a simple blues, 12-bar blues. Jazzers take that same progression and add more chords to it. More 2-5-1 progressions, if you will, heading to destination chords. Okay, let's play a little bit more of that. So what I tried to do there, which I missed a little bit, is going and doing a typical jazz ending, which they don't do a lot of in blues. Now, we've all heard that before. You can go up as well. So it's just something that's like 1 to 3 to 4 to 5. All right. So that's, like I said, and I posted a link to it a little bit earlier, which is the difference between blues and jazz. There's obviously a ton of other differences, not the least of which is jazz is typically more on the swing side, blues tends to be more on the straight eighth side or the rock side. In 2023, we put out... Which volume? Your vocal. It looks plenty loud enough to me.
It's just ask people on the thing.
There isn't anybody there to ask.
Of course there were.
Well, I don't see anybody. So.
There was.
Okay. Well, I can't turn it up anymore, so I don't know what else to do. I'll try to speak a little bit louder into the microphone. Nancy says that it might not be quite loud enough, so I'll try to project a little bit more. So in 2023, there was a lot of videos made. That was the most popular one. The most popular tutorial of 2023, because of course the jazz versus blues is not really a tutorial, it's more of like an introspective, like here's the difference between the two musics. The tutorials, on the other hand, were typically more detailed about how to play them, what chord structures, what voicings to play, what scales to play, those types of things. And interestingly enough, the most popular tutorial of 2023, and you can try to guess if you want to, as I talk about it, I think one of the reasons for this is it's probably not just the most popular tutorial for me, it's probably the most popular tutorial for other people as well if they did a tutorial on this tune, because it is easily the most recognized jazz tune of all time. It's also the most popular single tune of all time. Now, there are more popular albums like Kind of Blue by Miles Davis, but this was the most popular jazz tune of all time. And it's called, of course, Take 5, which was performed by the Dave Brubeck Quartet. However, he didn't actually write it. A lot of people get confused about that. It was written by Paul Desmond. And the interesting thing about this tune, and I did a complete tutorial on it, is that Dave didn't really like playing in 5/4 time. In fact, if you listen to his playing, especially on the first album, which was called Time Out, he didn't solo at all. All he did was play this pattern in the right hand. And that's all he did through the whole song. He didn't even play anything else. When he got to the bridge, he did things like this. Just kept going with that pattern, which I think is a good thing to do, but 5/4 was relatively new to him. Of course, it was brought in by Paul Desmond, and they probably discussed it a little bit, but not an easy thing to do. And so when I decided to put out a tutorial on it, what I thought was, I'll point out the most obvious mistake that people make when they play Take 5 on the piano. And that is the bass line. If you actually listen to the recording, the bass line is very specific and it continues throughout the tune. And so playing that in the left hand and playing the tune and then soloing in the right hand becomes a little complicated because, of course, it is in 5/4 time. But most people play things like this. But, you know, it's okay, But if you wanted to be true to the original actual recording and the composition, then you have to play it like this. Which is very different than this. Then there's a lot of people that do tutorials that talk about doing things like this, where they're trying to keep it going. Let's see, they do. They hop like this. I can't even do it. And I saw somebody actually do this, and I'm like, how do you actually, and he didn't solo over it, of course, but, so he's trying to play this. If I practiced it, I could probably do it, but, you know, you don't want to be jumping around like that, and that's not actually the bass line anyway. So what I did instead was show people that it's really just this, 1 to 5 to 5 to 1. And it's a good idea to practice that a lot and try to talk at the same time, because it is a bit of a rub your tummy, pat your head kind of thing. Really hard to do and talk. Let's play a little bit and see how we get. You know, the interesting thing about that song, and of course, this isn't a recording situation. I'm just kind of improvising, and there was a few things in there that weren't quite straight. For example, when I came back into the ending and the last A section, I kind of messed up the melody a little bit. And that's just, I think the point that I'm trying to make is, even in a performance situation, you can't expect to be perfect all the time. Even players as experienced as I am, we make mistakes. There's no question. And you just keep the rhythm going, and you just kind of cover it up as much as you can. And in most cases, the audience can't hear it because they just don't have the ears for that. They understand the tune and everything, but especially when you're soloing, if you kind of like mess up a note here and there, especially if you're playing a lot of notes, they're really not going to hear it. So just relax about it. If there's one thing for 2024 that I think all pianists should really think about is just kind of like that effortless mastery thing that Kenny Werner talks about. It's all about the more comfortable you are. And, you know, we used to talk a lot about in jazz, you know, dig into it and stuff like that. But that's actually backwards. It's like the more easy it feels, the better it's going to sound. And the more relaxed you are about your abilities and not trying to prove anything with, you know, I think ego. We have a lot of ego as musicians. Kind of keep that out of it and just try to make the best music you can make. If there was one wish I had for you for 2024, it's kind of like just relax into it. Think about effortless mastery. The more masterful you become, the less effort you're actually putting into it. So there wasn't a lot of effort in there, but you can see that even in some cases, like I don't play it perfectly. There is one thing at the end that I wanted to point out, which is this little ending that I kind of worked out, which is goes to B major 7, and then G flat major 7, to E major 7, to E flat. Which is kind of neat. I think, interestingly enough, when I posted a recording of that on the Jazz Pianist group on Facebook, within a few hours, it had reached over 5,000 reactions. And we all know what a reaction is on Facebook. It had hundreds of comments and lots of shares as well. And then it just disappeared off of Facebook. I don't know what happened with it, but it just disappeared. So I posted another one, a different version, because for some reason I didn't keep the recording of that one. I re-recorded it, posted it back on Facebook, and it got like 5,600 reactions as well. So that tune itself really strikes a chord. And I think the interesting thing is a lot of piano players don't really play it because it's, first of all, not the easiest thing to play. It's typically in E flat minor, but also 5/4 time, keeping the rhythm going and soloing at the same time. You won't hear a lot of recordings of people doing that. So if you really wanted to challenge yourself for 2024, it would be to practice that tune and get to the point, like I say, where you can solo. I do talk in that tutorial that was, we posted a link to the tutorial in the chat, but also put one up in the corner now because it's a very interesting tutorial. Some of the things I talk about in terms of soloing are just basically sticking with blues scales, which we talked a little bit about earlier. That's just blues. Just blues. And then the other thing is pentatonics. If you just play the black notes, you've got a pentatonic scale on G flat. then the other thing that I talk about, I think, is chromatic scales, which in this particular case would be this scale. So it gets a little bit out, which is nice because you don't want to stay inside the whole time. You can't stay on the chromatic scale all day long, but you can step into it and then back to E flat minor. So some neat little things to do with Take 5. Okay, let's move on a little bit. We've been online for about half an hour now. We've gotten through 2 things. There's quite a bit more to get through. So every year we do some Christmas sheet music tutorials. One of the ones that was very popular this year was something that we'd actually not posted this year. We posted it, I think, in, well, no, it could have been 2022, but it was the most popular Christmas tutorial of 2023. And that is Christmas Time Is Here from the Charlie Brown Christmas, which of course is Vince Guaraldi. We do a lot of tutorials for Vince Guaraldi. He's a great jazz piano player. And to a lot of people, the Peanuts Christmas special, A Charlie Brown Christmas, was people's first introduction to jazz. It's interesting. It's one of the most influential jazz albums of all time, made for a cartoon. So, and I think Vince Guaraldi did a great job of playing, not just on the album, but playing to get the feel of the Peanuts character. So it was great in that regard. This one, Christmas Time Is Here, has some really nice changes in it. I'll just play a little bit of it. Yeah, I think the thing that makes that tune interesting is that one major chord to flat 7, 7. So one major 7 to flat 7, 7. So F7 to E flat 7 with a sharp 11. And the sharp 11 is the melody. This gives it that sort of really nice sound. There's another Christmas tune. Actually, it's not really a Christmas tune. It's What Are You Doing New Year's Eve? It also uses that same progression. So it's the same progression. In this case, G major 7 to F7, sharp 11. I think those two chords, one major 7 and flat 7, 7, have been used in a lot of tunes. Anyway, that was the How to Play Christmas Time Is Here tutorial. I'm going to throw a link to that up in the corner. I think there's, if Nancy wants to find it and put it in the chat area, you can do that as well. But it was definitely the most popular Christmas tutorial. The most popular Latin tutorial on the channel is how to play salsa montuno on piano. Now, I'm not going to go through the whole tutorial. I will post a link to that, how to play salsa montuno, up in the corner. But it's definitely something that you can use in jazz. Latin music is very popular for jazz players. So if you go to a jam session or you go hear a jazz band play, you will definitely hear a lot of mostly bossa nova, but you can definitely check out some jazz salsa music. In this case, that's basically what the montuno is for. It's for salsa music. Now, the interesting thing about this is it's all based on one 2-bar pattern. So if we were to actually just play that pattern, it's just... What you're trying to do with that is take that same pattern and make it more complicated by adding chords to it and arpeggiating those chords as well. So again, it's really just that pattern that goes. Now, another video that we did, which isn't quite as popular as that one, I think it's because it's a lot more difficult, is taking that same montuno and adding the bass part to it, which is called a tumbao. So it's basically off the beat. You know, that kind of thing. So if you put the two together, that's definitely something that I think is worth looking at. Let me put a link to that video, piano, salsa montuno and tumbao together. Just kind of, not many piano players can do that, and I talk in detail about how to put those two things together. Chick Corea used to do a lot of things like that on a tune like this. what's the name of that tune? Armando's Rumba, right? And he can play that left-hand tumbao throughout almost the entire solo, which is really impressive. I've never really been able to do that myself, because just playing it with the rhythm is difficult enough. Yeah, I think the reason why that particular tutorial is so popular is because it's very rhythmic, and it kind of tricks the ear in terms of how the rhythm moves through that 2 bars and kind of seems like it's going over the bar. The accents are in different places than the ear is used to, and it hears that. It goes, what the heck is going on there? And so I highly encourage you to check out that tutorial, because most Latin music, Montuno-based music, is basically based on that specific pattern. And so it's really good for piano players to learn that. So I encourage you to do that in 2024. Okay. Just a quick shout out to a few people that have joined us live. Jeffrey, Chris, and Martin just showed up. Hey, Martin, how are you? Welcome. I'm just going through, and if you want to eventually get around to watching this thing again, I'm basically doing a year in review for the JazzMentl channel and talking about some of the more popular videos, also some statistics, which I'm going to actually get to now. What do you think is the most popular playlist that we have on the JazzMentl channel? So playlists are basically compilations of different videos and tutorials that we've done on the channel put under one sort of main banner. So we have, for example, we have a Latin playlist, we have a solo piano playlist, we have beginner playlist, intermediate, expert playlist, which, by the way, the expert playlist is the least popular of all of them, which I don't really understand, because I put a lot of emphasis on more advanced types of jazz playing, and I think even if you're like an intermediate or a beginner, you should be paying attention to those things. Even if you know it's above your level, you should always be encouraging yourself by listening to those things, even if you're not quite ready for them, because it kind of gets you prepared for where you want to go. It's like, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. If you set a high bar, it's better than setting a low bar, because, you know, if you shoot for the stars, you're at least going to hit the moon, kind of thing. So I'm not sure why the advanced playlist is the least popular, but that might help you Yes, I talked about my cold earlier in the video. Hopefully I won't have too much of that going on. The intermediate playlist is the most popular on this channel. I think that's probably a good thing because the intermediates, which you may think you're one of them, or you may more relate to the beginner ones, which was the second most popular, by the way, the beginner ones, which we didn't really intend to do on this channel. But due to popular demand, we had to do it. So, and it's become one of the more popular things that we do on the channel. In fact, if you're a beginner, I'm going to put a link to a video up in the corner when I repost this. So it's live now, but the recording's going to be there. So I can put a card in the corner, which basically sends you to the first video in a series of 10 beginner piano series. I call it the ultimate guide, the ultimate beginner's guide to jazz piano. It's a great series. You should absolutely do it. Even if you're an intermediate, it'll kind of remind you of all the things that you learned in school, things like that. Kind of takes you back to the basics. So I hope you go check that out. And you can actually sign up for it for free, and it will send you like one video a week for like 10 weeks, which is really fun. And in the emails, I talk about the things to pay attention to in each of those videos. Okay. So we got about 15 minutes left. Let's go through some stats and maybe play a little bit more. The average viewer on my channel, what do you think the average age of viewers on the JazzMentl channel is? And the answer is there isn't one. It's pretty evenly distributed from 18 years of age to 85. We have senior players and we have junior players and everything in between. So there's really an equal distribution throughout all ages. A couple of interesting statistics to follow that up with is 45% of you watch the channel on a mobile phone. Now, there's a couple of problems with that. The first one is sound, because I put a lot of effort into, you can see great recording mics and a great system. Even when we're live streaming, it's hard to get a piano sound that sounds like that. So I put a lot of effort into it. If you watch the channel on a mobile phone, you're not getting the actual sound that we're trying to put out. Because, you know, it's just not going to sound like that on a mobile phone. I've listened to it on a mobile myself, and it's not the greatest. 38% of you watch on desktop, and 16% of you watch on your TV or your tablet. In terms of demographics, male versus female, what do you think? I found this one super interesting. 87.6% of you are male, which kind of, if I look at the people that have been on the live thing, it's all male. Only 12.4% of you identify as female, and I know I say that jokingly, but basically male versus female, it's predominantly males. I don't know if that's because we love jazz more than women, or because we're more players are men than women. I think it's probably a combination of many of those things. Also, geographics, 33% of our viewers are from the United States. The top cities in the world that watch JazzMentl tutorials are first New York and second Chicago. I can tell you there is a lot of people from all over the world, but the balance of that, which is basically 67% of you come from the UK, Canada, Austria, Japan, Taiwan, Jordan, Ukraine, Trinidad, Ireland. I know Martin is here. Vietnam, just to name a few of the countries. And in Canada, only 4% of the channel is viewers from Canada. That's because we're not a very big country. Yes, we're massive in size, but we're very small in terms of population. I think we just reached 40 million, which is, for a country in terms of its geographical size, 40 million is not a lot of people. So, and there isn't a thriving jazz community in Canada as well. So let's just play. I'm going to give you some of the channel achievements in just a minute. I wanted to just wish you a happy new year. And I'm going to play a little bit of What Are You Doing New Year's Eve. I started playing that a little bit earlier, but it's a nice tune in the fact that it's in G major, which is not a common key really for jazz players, but it tends to be a little bit brighter in that key, so I like to play it there. I'm not sure what the original key is. I don't know. But it uses that 1 major 7 to flat 7, major 7, sharp 11. That's kind of like the basis of the whole tune.
And Martin's from Scotland.
Sorry, Martin's from Scotland. Yeah, got it. I always mix that up. I'm sorry, Martin, if I'm like, you're over there somewhere, and I shouldn't mix them up, and I'll try to remember for next time. So my wife just appeared and said, hey, Martin's from Scotland, not Ireland. Okay. Anyway, let me play this, and then I'll come back. Really sorry. Sorry, Guitar Coyote says, really sorry you got the flu to start the new year. But lucky for us viewers, we get to see the new year with you. Best one of the 87 percenters. Oh, okay, great. 87% of you being male. Absolutely. Martin says, back in Scotland, chilling to Paul. Good. I like you chilling to me. That's good. Jazz jam tomorrow, but tonight is easy, breezy, and lazy. I don't have my glasses, so I can't read things perfectly, but I hope that makes good sense. We got like 4 minutes left. If you can think of a tune and maybe a request, I can pull it out. Maybe I know it, maybe I don't. But I have access to like sheet music, which we can maybe go through. But if you have a request maybe from something that stood out from the last year on the JazzMentl channel, something that you learned from, something that inspired you, I wouldn't mind playing that in the last few minutes before we sign off. Again, for those of you that have supported the channel, we were 2,000 subscribers at the beginning of 2023. Now we're over 10,000. If you're one of them who've joined us this year, all I can say is thanks for doing that. We don't do this for nothing. We do it to help, and we can't help if you don't want the help. So the fact that you show up and looking for guidance as a jazz piano player or guitar player, we have lots of guitar players and bass players and even drummers on the channel because there's a lot of information here. But again, if there's a request that you have, something that you want me to play, I know there's like a 13 or 15 second lag, so I'll wait a second to see if there is a request. If there isn't, I'll just sign off by playing something else. Maybe I can just play a little bit more of the Montuno, which is kind of fun to do. So Martin wants to hear Sunny Side of the Street. It's been a while. Can you just give me 1 second? Because I need a bit of a guide just to get myself through the tune. I know that I've done tutorials on this before, but it's not one of those tunes that always stuck with me. Okay. that was worthy of you. Should definitely put some more time into that tune. It's been a while since I played it, so thanks for the suggestion. I might make a tutorial out of that. Anyway, thanks for your time, everyone. Have a great 2024. Have a happy new year and all of that good stuff that comes along with it. My name is Paul Tobey. Thanks for being a part of JazzMentl, and my wife and I, Nancy, really appreciate your interest and attention to this channel. Thanks so much. Have a great year. We'll see you again soon.